Welcome to the CCFR Radio Podcast, your source for news, updates, and stories from the CCFR.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 174 of the CCFR Radio Podcast. I'm your host, 𝐟𝐮𝐧𝐝. Thanks for joining me again. Today we've got a huge show for you. We're going to start it off with sharing a really big announcement, something we've been working on at the CCFR for over 2 years. I can't wait to share that with you. I've got an interview with Scott Carpenter from International Shooting Supplies in Surrey, British Columbia. Scott and I went hunting for elk. I've been talking about this for a couple of episodes. Well, we've got the whole story here for you, as well as some video that I shot at the same time. Can't wait to share that with you as well. And also, Wilson will be on as usual. We're going to talk about some more buffoonery associated with the Liberal long gun confiscation project, otherwise known as the Buyback. You won't believe your ears. It's a total disaster. As well, the BC NDP are pulling out all the stops. They're taking a page from the federal Liberal playbook of gaslighting and flat out lying to people in order to win at all costs the upcoming BC election. Anyway, all that and more. CCFR Radio starts right now. 𝐂𝐂𝐿𝐿 has been a provider of trauma care training to military and police in Canada for nearly 2 decades. Now this emergency medical training is being made available to a wider audience through 𝐂𝐂𝐿𝐿's online courses. Go to 𝐂𝐂𝐿𝐿𝐴cademy.com and use promo code CCFR30 to get 30% off. That's 𝐂𝐂𝐿𝐴cademy.com. And thank you so much to our great friends over at Vortex Canada. They continue to support the CCFR podcast and the CCFR. Can't say enough about them. Check out all their great products at vortexcanada.net. That's vortexcanada.net. Vortex, the force of optics. Need a new boomstick? Bullseye North is Canada's shooting superstore and a proud supporter of the CCFR. With a wide selection of guns and top trending gear for any shooter, they have what you need. Plus, free shipping over $250, which includes ammo, or flat rate shipping of $17 under $250. Some conditions apply. Subscribe to their weekly newsletter to get first access to the hottest deals. A huge thank you goes out to our great friends over at the Saskatchewan Rivers chapter of Safari Club International. They do a lot of great work over there, including supporting the CCFR and the CCFR Radio podcast. Check out all their great work at saskriverssci.com. That's saskriverssci.com. All right, we are back. So I am really excited to share this with you. This is one of several projects that we've had going on behind the scenes. And it's not the biggest project that we've had going on, but this one was a complicated one, and it's been going on for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. It's been a real struggle. And I'll tell you what it is right now. It's the CCFR Mobile App. It is available on the Google Play Store for Android users and in the Apple Store for iPhone users. And let me tell you this before we get to the app itself, but we also have it in the progressive web app format. So in case you haven't heard of a PWA before, basically it's a cancel-proof app. You use your web browser on your phone. It's like a bookmark. When you open it, it goes to a website that's optimized for display on mobile devices, and it has basically 85-90% of all the features that a native mobile app has, but it doesn't use an app store. We can't get kicked off of the app store. So if something goes wrong, that's okay, because you can always use the app in the progressive web app format. So all good there. So we developed all 3 platforms for this. Now I'm going to tell you about it. You must be thinking like, well, why does the gun lobby need an app? Like, what possibly could that be used for? Well, wait till you see it. It's pretty cool. So the first thing, this is my own app, my own phone here. The first thing is, when you go into this thing, you can go on to the CCFR's newsfeed. Now, I've said it before, you might be tired of hearing it, but we have 2 social media guys, and it's Brandon and Silas, and those guys are awesome. I can't say it enough. They do such a phenomenal job for the CCFR. If you follow us, you know our social media game is unmatched, even by multinational companies, okay? Much less just advocacy or wildlife organizations. It's phenomenal. And now you don't need Twitter. You don't need any social media platforms. This is their whole newsfeed is all piped into the app. You got access to everything, videos, everything, emergency announcements, whatever. So that's the news feed. If you want to watch or listen to the CCFR Radio podcast, you can have that too. You can watch it audio or listen to it audio only, or you can watch it via video in the app. That's great. You're probably getting it somewhere else. That's all right. Doesn't matter. Then, of course, you have your membership card. So your entire relationship, your membership, checking whether your membership's valid, renewing it, taking out a new membership, like creating a new membership, all that can be done through the app, and you have your dynamically updated membership card here. And there it is. You can see it full size. Now, what do you need the membership card in an app for? You're probably wondering. And why would you use it? Well, there's something in it for you. So you may have heard of CCFR business members. So if you go to ccfr.ca or firearmrights.ca and you click business member directory, there's about 300 businesses in Canada that support the CCFR by becoming a business member. They get listed in the directory. They can put ads on our social media because we have some pretty big social media accounts. And these are people that have gone out of their way to support the biggest, most effective gun lobby organization in the history of the country. We wouldn't be where we are without all of you and our business members. So that's significant. That's meaningful to me. So if you want to direct your business to a CCFR business member, because by extension, they're helping themselves by protecting people's ability to legally own and use firearms, and they're helping you too with their own money, right? So if you want to direct your business to CCFR business members, that's one way you can do it. But here's the other way. Below your membership card, you're going to find CCFR business members. Now, not all of them are on here yet because we just released this to business members like literally 2 days ago. So they're not all on here. But as they come on, there'll be new business members on the app all the time. So the first one that we have here is International Shooting Supplies, because one of the owners is Scott Carpenter, who's currently the president of the CCFR, who will be coming on next because we went elk hunting, and I'll tell you the elk hunting story. But if you go to International Shooting Supplies in the app, you click it, there's about the store, there's a map to get there, there's directions if you press the button, and there's the discount. International Shooting Supplies, as with all business members, and they all have different deals, but ISS is giving 3% off to CCFR members in the store on everything. Some restrictions apply, that's your caveat, but they're saying 3% off your order, off of everything. So how do you get that discount? Well, you roll into International Shooting Supplies and you say, hey, I'm interested in the 3%. I'm a CCFR member. They're like, hey, show me your membership card. You press membership card and there it is. You make it big in case somebody needs their glasses and you say, here it is. And they're like, oh, bud, you're expired. You're like, what? Oh man, I'm expired. Because it validates, it goes right into our database every single time and pulls out the status. And you're like, oh man, I want that discount. You just hit the button, renew membership, and you're gonna get renewed right then and there. And now you get your 3%. So if you went in to International, let's say, and you bought a new hunting rifle and some ammo and a case, it's like $2,000, right? You're gonna get $60 off that. A membership to the CCFR, which includes $5 million worth of liability insurance, is $40. You're $20 ahead right there. Plus, if you spent even more, you went, and that's the entire year, you just year round, you're gonna get 3% off, at least at International, every time you go there. So it's actually making you money. So why did we do this? Well, we did this, number one, because plastic cards are really expensive. So if you think of it in terms of the CCFR asks people to become members, you're like, I'm helping. I'm becoming a member of the CCFR and I get some insurance. Well, that insurance costs about 20% of that $40. So costs us. So that comes off the top. Because remember, we need money for advocacy. We're not here to create a big club, right? We're here to fight the government, to sue the government, to try to get them destroyed in an election, to embarrass them, hold them accountable in public. We need money to do all these things, and that's why we raise money with donations and memberships. So the insurance comes off the top. Then that plastic card costs us somewhere between, I don't know, it's like $6, $7, $8, something like that per card. And we probably get 5% of them back in the mail because people type in their address and they do something wrong and it gets returned after 2 months. They're yelling at us, where's my card? And it's like, oh, well, we don't know. It was sent to you like 4 weeks ago. It's like, okay, and it ends up coming back. And then we got to put that in another envelope, paste postage, and then send that out again, right? And somebody's got to do that, taking time away from actual advocacy. So we're doing away with the plastic cards. When you buy a membership, if that plastic card's super important to you, no problem. you can buy that. I forget how much we're charging, but we're charging what it costs us, plus I think $1, just for our time, I guess, to send that card out. So I'm trying to do away with all the cards so that we can use that money for advocacy. Because that's, we sued the government in the biggest lawsuit on behalf of gun owners ever. It's like, well, it was $2.4 million plus the appeal is probably going to cost us $150,000, right? You can't do that if you're burning up money in all kinds of different areas. So this is the way that we found is the best way to do it. You'll have your membership card no matter what. If you got your phone, you got your membership card, and you can make money basically by having the app, downloading it, and then presenting that virtual membership card at the point of purchase. And sometimes they'll have web specials too. So why did we do it? We did it to make sure that people keep their memberships current, because that helps us. It allows people to buy new memberships without having to go to a website and all the rest of that stuff. They can do that right at a CCFR booth at a gun show. They'll just say, download the app. Here you go. Here, put in your information. You got a CCFR membership, and you're making money when you're buying hunting or shooting or sporting goods or any other service. And not every business member of the CCFR is in the shooting sports. There's other businesses there too. So there's all kinds of things to choose from, and that list in the app will get larger over time. So we make sure that we get new members stay current, business members help the CCFR, and CCFR members will be driven directly to businesses that are helping the CCFR, rather than going to some place that's like, I'm not participating in advocacy or helping anybody. I'm running a business. I just want to run my own business, and if there's no guns, I'll switch to something else. I'll rent cars for a living, So not that you have to be a member of the CCFR. I'm just saying that's what our business model looks like. So anyway, yeah. So very exciting. You can buy things off the store in the app as well. It has dark mode. It has light mode, right? Like all the other apps. It is a really cool app, and it's taken a long time to get it to where it is right now. So I'm really excited to announce that. So again, if you're an Apple user, no problem. If you're a Android user, no problem. You can download these apps for free right now in all the app stores, or you can use the Progressive Web app. You're going to find a link for the Progressive Web app on the CCFR's website, right? ccfr.ca. And just find the store in the app, and you'll find that. You'll also find tutorials and FAQs on using the app. So if you have any problems, go there. All the answers should be there. So anyway, pretty exciting, right? So another never before done thing that the CCFR has done. And I'm really excited, and I hope everyone will download it. Oh, I'm going to tell you a couple more things. Sorry. You're like, finally he's going to shut up. But I was intimately involved in the development of this app, obviously. And this app will not track you. This app will not ask you for your contacts. It will not ask you for access to your microphone or record your phone calls or turn your camera on. None of that garbage. If you've known me for a while, you know that privacy is really important to me, and I don't need to give anyone any information they don't deserve. So whenever I download an app, I'm like, oh man, do I want to give up this, and this, right? So none of that stuff is built into this app. You're safe with it. We will never sell your information. We'll never share your information with anybody, not even the business members, by the way. So you're safe with that app. And we also have the ability to send you notifications. So if you turn those on, if you only want the red alerts, we will never, just like when I say that if you sign up for our newsletter, email newsletter, we will not spam you. Why? Because it's wrong to do that. So that's why we will not do that. We send one email a week. Same thing with the app. If you turn on the notifications for red alerts, it'll be like there's a gun ban coming, or or the Liberal government, Justin Trudeau has resigned. It'll be like that level stuff, right? So it won't be just like, hey, check out the deal in our store or whatever. So you can disable or enable any of the notifications in there, and they work. They've been sending test ones to my phone, so you can disable those. And I can't remember whether we enable them when you download the app or not. But anyway, they're easy to turn off if you don't want them. So yeah, really exciting. Download it now at the app stores. Okay, guys? Are you ready to fight for your ability to legally own and use firearms in Canada and save hundreds of dollars in hunting and shooting merchandise? Download the CCFR Mobile App right now. Keep up with what's going on in the community, watch the CCFR podcast, and get exclusive discounts from dozens of gun stores and other CCFR business members. Download it right now from Google Play, the Apple App Store, or the cancel-proof Progressive web app. The CCFR Mobile App, free to download right now. All right, we are back. So in the studio, we've got Scott Carpenter from International Shooting Supplies, also currently the president of the CCFR. How's it going, Scott?
Great, Rod. Thanks for having me.
Good. Thanks for coming. All right, we're going to talk about the hunt that I just went on and how I got my first big game animal. Mm-hmm. And so we went up to the Peace region of British Columbia. Yep. And to a friend of yours' farm. Why don't you tell us about where we were?
Yeah, so we have a guy who's a customer and a friend of mine who has a few thousand acres worth of grain farm in the North Peace region. And he's got a lot of elk and deer and stuff on his property, and his elk herd's been growing really steady over the last few years. He's sort of become inundated with cows, and I think that's sort of a problem that a lot of farmers and ranchers and whatnot are having in the Peace region. So the province has opened up not just a bull season, they've gone to a 3-point or better bull, but they've also opened up a cow season. And so over the last couple of years, he's been inviting myself and a couple of my friends up to take cows specifically out of the herd for him. So it's what we would refer to as a bit of a management hunt. So we're trying to trim the cow population so that the population of the elk in general doesn't expand so quickly. So the hunting's a little different up there compared to the interior. I mean, in the interior, as you noticed on our bear hunt this spring, we do a lot of hiking around and driving around and all these sorts of things. Whereas in the Peace, which is primarily an agricultural zone, we do a lot of stand hunting and blind hunting and whatnot. So it's a bit of a different type of hunt. So it's a long drive to get there. So it's nice to be able to sit a little bit. We have a chance to do some walking and some hiking around too if we want, but primarily we're hunting out of blinds and out of tree stands. So when we got there the night before the cow season opened, we just did a quick walk and drive around the property just to see where the blinds were and made a plan for the next morning, and got up the next morning and got set into our blinds. So there was a lot of elk around, so I knew the chance was pretty good that we were going to see game pretty early in the morning, and like last year, it did disappoint. So we got your on-year elk pretty quickly, actually. Yeah, well, I was certainly happy with the scenario where we didn't have to hike all over mountains, 10, 15, 20 kilometers a day up and down. Mm-hmm. But how it kind of panned out was we got up at 10 to 5 or whatever, had our coffee. We're out of the shack by, 5:30. While it was still dark, we went to the specific blind in this wide open field, mm-hmm. got up there, and then I think it was 40 minutes, and we spied a small herd. Yeah, so in BC, we're allowed to start hunting an hour before sunrise and as long as an hour after sunset. Normally, it's still dark at that time, so we just try and get into our blinds at that time. It's really too early to hunt, so we just sit there and wait until the light starts to flood into the field. And about the time that it got bright enough to see everything down at the other end of the field, which is about 1 kilometer away, is a pretty long piece of hayfield, the elk started to sort of pour in at the opposite end of the field. And normally what happens, in my experience in that situation, is that they kind of drift back and forth between timber. So I wasn't really sure if they were going to come up the middle of the field straight towards us, because they had about 1 kilometer to cover to get to us. So we just chirped on a cow call a little bit, puts them at ease. They can hear it. They think there's other elk, maybe over the rise feeding in the field. And instead of drifting through the field, they actually traveled up the field towards us. We had to wait for a while because they don't come quickly. They just feed and listen and feed and listen and watch. And then once they got to within about 150 to 200 yards, we were able to select a mature cow, and the rest is history. Yeah, well, it was a couple of surprising things. It was great because they kept coming towards us on our left-hand side. Yeah. And then they got to the range around 200 yards, and then they turned left, which put them right across our blind. Yeah. Just under 200, I think. It was like God had a little hand and think what was going on there. He was like, okay, boys, here you go. We're just going to turn them right here, right now, and we're going to give you your shot. Well, he knew I did the work last time around, right? Like you did. Went 3 days, got nothing. Yeah, it was a tough hunt last time for a bear hunt. Did a lot of walking, put on a lot of miles to not really see too much. So it was nice to see a lot of game this time around, and to see things sort of work out the way we hoped they would work out. I mean, it's hunting and not killing for a reason. You never know really what's going to happen, but fate was sort of on our side. And so, shortly after, I don't even know what time it was. It was probably 7 o'clock in the morning, somewhere in there, 7:30 a.m. We had one elk down, and you made a great shot at about 150 to 200 meters, hit the ground instantly. And I was sort of expecting the rest of the herd to just beat it.
They didn't.
And they didn't. They just kind of stood there. Yeah, there was a bunch of little bulls further back, about another 150 yards back. And the lead cow that you shot had another cow with her, and a little bit smaller, but a mature cow. And she just got a little spooky, and she kind of started to trot a little bit. And the next thing you know, she stopped right almost like probably 50 yards behind where your cow dropped. Yeah. And you're like, are you going to shoot that thing? And for a second, I'm like, man, that's a lot of work first thing in the morning. But I'm like, here's the opportunity. I guess we better. So next thing you know, we have a second cow down, probably 60 seconds apart from one another. So yeah, we created a lot of work, but first thing in the morning, but it was productive, and it sort of worked out the way it was supposed to. I was pretty pleased, actually.
Yeah, well, it couldn't get easier. We had a tractor.
Yep.
Went back, got the tractor, strung him up on the tractor, drove him back.
Yeah.
And, I had a lot of people ask me like, oh, did you get the shakes? Or, how did you feel about it? And I just, that's my first big game animal. Mm-hmm. I didn't grow up like that. And I was okay with the whole thing. I really didn't feel much because I knew I was going to eat the animal because I really wanted the meat. Mm-hmm. And I knew, like, you know what I mean? There was no hesitation or anything. No. The only thing I found that was just took a little bit of getting used to was the processing.
Yeah.
You get there and that creature was alive a little while before. You're opening it up, pulling all of its innards out and removing its head and its legs. And so, by the time we were finished the first two animals, because there were other people there too that had animals, I was okay, but I was like, oh man, it's pretty gory.
Yeah, it's a little shock to the system if you've never done it before.
No.
So, and an elk is a large animal. It's not like skinning a rabbit or something like that.
Cleaning fish, right? Clean fish.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a large mammal, and it requires a tremendous amount of work. And yeah, it's a little bit of getting used to, but you did really well. So I think you'll make a good hunter. I think you'll have a good time in the future pursuing deer and bear and everything else as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I think I'll be going waterfowl hunting in the fall here in the next month or two. We'll see if I can conjure up a little video of that. But yeah, I'll definitely be doing it next year.
Yeah, you'll have a lot of fun.
Anyway, we are out of time, so I appreciate it, Scott, and a successful hunt.
Yep.
Until next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Rod.
All right, via Skype, we've got Tracy Wilson of the CCFR. Wilson!
I heard that a lot this weekend again.
Again,
yeah. I was up in Manitoba at Wolverine Days, and I heard it numerous times over the weekend.
Yeah, well, I had a pile of work to do, so I wasn't able to go this year again. I've never been, actually, and as much as I want to go every year, it's just been impossible. And, everyone knows why I couldn't go. One of the projects was the mobile app, which we just talked about before I brought you on. So I had stuff I had to finish. So it was a good time?
It was a great time. It was actually their 35th anniversary, so it's a big deal. 35 years in business, and of course, I came home with a very generous $10,000 donation, so thank you to them for that. But yeah, just amazing to see everybody who came out. It was fun. The weather was incredible.
Yeah, so, they're a great group of people. Good family.
They sure are.
Yeah, and we really appreciate the help. All right, we've got some really interesting stuff to talk about in this episode, so we're going to get started right away. Now, there was a story, and it's really like a wool sweater where you pull the one little thread, and then the whole thing starts unraveling. And I know you're excited to talk about this. I'm excited to share all this stuff with everyone. But basically, I think the way that we intro this is an actual real Canadian senator, Don Plett, submitted an order paper question about what the status of the assault-style weapons liberal buyback is, and things started unraveling from there.
Yeah, that's right. So he had some concerns because, as you know, this program has already cost taxpayers over $67 million. Not a single firearm has been collected from anybody. And he was curious as to how that money was being spent and who was getting the contracts and for what. So the government has a requirement that they have to formally respond to these order paper questions with a written response. So Jennifer O'Connell, our favorite friend, parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Public Safety, sent him a response. And I was reading through it. It's a couple pages long, and, they're detailing who got what and what was spent on what. And, among the $67 million of wasted taxpayer money, there was an amount totaling over $9 million to a consulting company called Samson and Associates. So I was, curious, well, what do they do? I've actually never heard of them before. So I got out the Google machine and looked them up, and, they do a bunch of IT work and database stuff and, online technology. And I thought, okay, well, that might make sense, because a lot of this will have to do with collecting data from stores and from gun owners and whatnot. So while I'm perusing their website, I scroll down to the bottom and I see they've got a number of offices, I think 5 or 6 of them across, kind of Ontario, Quebec region. And 3 of them were within a 15 or 20 minute drive of my house. So I went on a little field trip, and I thought, well, hit up the Ottawa office first. It's just down in the Glebe. It's not too far. And the reason I wanted to go there and see it is because on Google Images or Google Street View, it showed me a home with no signage. And I thought, well, that can't be right. That's not an office. But you and I talked about it. And you said, well, maybe it's an old image. Maybe something's been updated with the building. So, okay. I jump in the car, I go down there, and the building has been redone, but it's been split into 2 apartments. There's no signage anywhere. It's a residential area. So I ring the first doorbell, nothing happens. I ring the second doorbell, and this cute little old man comes to the door in his pajamas. Mind you, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. It's not particularly early. And he proceeds to tell me that that's not really their office, and that they just use that address to collect mail at. And I apologized for interrupting him. So, in the morning, and he's out there in his pajamas. And he said he did do some consulting or some independent work for them, but they just use the address for mail, and I would be better off to head over to their head office in Gatineau. So I took his advice. I jumped in the car and I went across the bridge to Gatineau, and I went to their office there. This was an actual office. It actually looked like an old stone church. It was a beautiful little building. But of course, inside, completely deserted. I've got video of this and audio to share with everybody, and you'll find that on my Twitter feed. But I found a deserted building. There was no interior signage. There was a sign on the outside of the building, but the reception area had no signage. There was no business cards. There's no materials, no pamphlets, nothing. There was a lady in there. I don't know if she was administrative or a cleaning lady. She wrote down a couple of email addresses for me to contact people, keeping in mind this is their head office of their corporation. I said, okay, well, while I'm over here on the Quebec side, I'm going to jump back in the car and head over to Chelsea, Quebec. Beautiful little area right across the bridge. So I went over there, and it was kind of the same story. I went into this building. There was a few shops on the main floor. Samson and Associates was supposed to be in Suite 203. I went up the stairs, and it was like an open concept office space with a bunch of different construction type contractors and building designer type companies.
So it was like a shared office.
See a sign that's
it's like a shared office.
Yeah, and I could see a sign that said Samson and Associates Design and Graphics, which is different than Samson and Associates consulting. So I was like, wow, I'm really confused now. However, this was all listed on their website as their offices. And again, completely deserted, not a soul in the building. The desks were dusty, like there's nothing going on there. So, I don't know, but $9 million worth of consulting, that's a fairly substantial contract. And yet I never did get to actually speak to any human beings other than people I was passing in the hallways. And nobody was around. So I don't know. I mean, I guess people have to draw their own conclusions on that. But yeah, for a big corporation, they sure are hard to locate.
$9 million. And, just to give you an idea, like a small business with maybe like 7 people or whatever, most small businesses of that size, they operate between $2 and $3 million a year in revenue. Typically, depending on the business, obviously, right? A contracting business is different than a consulting business, which is different than an import business, right? So,
right.
But still, like a business like ours, we operate, on about anywhere between 1.9 and 2.5 million dollars per year. We got 7 people, and we are working our butts off every day, year round.
Yeah.
And we're running our business on $2.5 million a year, or $2 million a year, including spending $700,000 a year in lawsuits against the government and other things, right? So $9 million. You have a residential address. You got deserted shared offices and whatever, 6 locations, but nobody really working in any of them. That's just interesting.
Yeah, well, and that's why I came home from that little field trip thinking, well, that's interesting. I don't know. It makes me want to go check out the other offices. But yeah, I couldn't find anyone. And you would think with their Gatineau office being, promoted as their head office, it's their main office. And there wasn't a soul there. And this wasn't, 7 in the morning or in the evening when typically nobody would be around. By the time I made it to Gatineau, it was 11 o'clock. So it's not like everyone was on lunch. There was nobody there, completely deserted. It was not what I expected. I expected, busy, bustling offices full of people doing consulting, whatever that is. And, somebody there I could maybe talk to about their involvement with the program. But I never even got that far because they're just deserted, except for one old guy in his pajamas,
And,
so,
I just want to add this. As outrageous as that is, and people should be outraged about that kind of stuff, right? And hey, I don't know, maybe these are 3 offices they don't use and there are other 3 offices that are full of people. But just think about $9 million over the course of whatever it is, a year or maybe 2 years, $4.5 million a year. Like that's a big, big business. So I don't know
Well, and even if nobody happened to be there right at that moment, which I would find hard to believe in an office building, for $9 million, even our volunteer field officers have business cards. She couldn't provide me with anything because there was literally not a single thing with their company name on it inside. So I came away with just a yellow Post-it note that she scribbled some email addresses on, which of course have not replied to me. But yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. You'd think there'd be a business card or something to give me, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's pretty strange. Like, I don't know, maybe it's fully legit, but it doesn't feel like that to me. But anyway, it really wouldn't be a surprise with this Liberal government. I just want to go out of my way to say, if the Conservatives were in charge and the Conservatives were responsible for something like this or the GC strategies or any of the other stuff, I would be just as outraged, because the only way to turn the whole system around is for people to stop doing stuff like this.
Yes.
Just stop it.
Well, and here's the other thing. I mentioned it to somebody on the weekend. They said, well, it's only $9 million. And I think we're sort of desensitized because $9 million in Liberal speak is nothing, right? It's a drop in the bucket. I mean, they're wasting billions, if not trillions. So I guess when you look at it that way, but to me, the amount of work you could accomplish with $9 million is like, I know what we do on a pretty tight budget, right? Imagine if we had funding like that. So yeah, I don't know. I think we're just getting too used to being ripped off that we just don't really,
Well, we're not saying that they're ripping us off or the government, but it sure looks that way.
Yeah, it doesn't smell good, that's for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, good work on that. Doing a little super sleuthing. There's something that we don't usually do as the CCFR, but good work on that. Now, speaking of the buyback and what a disaster it is, the buyback itself is now the subject of the BC elections. And I'm just going to read something for you. And I've got some really interesting comments. But basically, there's a provincial election going on in BC. It is a runoff for a majority government between the BC NDP, which have just ravaged British Columbia, because I live in British Columbia. And it's funny because voters only have a very short memory. The NDPs, there was a big fast ferries fiasco. There was all kinds of horrible things that cost BC residents billions upon billions of dollars when the NDP were in, and the economy was terrible. The BC Liberals had taken over. They're sort of the Conservatives provincially, and things got a lot better. And then people forget real quick, and they elected the NDP again, and now we are in crushing debt, and it's just an absolute mess. So the NDP they believe that they have to win at all costs, and they're just exhibiting the worst behavior. So anyway, I'm just going to tell you 2 tweets, but here's a graphic that you can see. It's got all this different social media messaging on, but this is 𝐥𝐞𝐠𝐚𝐥 and he's running in Surrey as for a provincial MLA in this next election that's at the end of October. And he says, I am gravely concerned that John Rustad, who is the leader of the BC Conservatives, is saying that he will direct police to ignore federal gun laws in British Columbia. He's playing politics with public safety. Now, I will tell you what John Rustad said is he's not going to allow the federal government to use RCMP resources that the province pays for to do the buyback, to confiscate guns from exclusively licensed gun owners. That's what he was talking about. That's what he said. And this is how the NDP is spinning it. Let me just read one more for you. Mike Farnworth, John Rustad's plan to not enforce the assault rifle ban is astonishing. This tells gangs, apparently, that they can import and carry these weapons and police won't seize them. This is completely outrageous. It would make our streets less safe and put police officers at risk. So you can see the messaging is completely disconnected from reality. And it's absolutely shocking. And last of all is Global News jumped in and they did the NDP's work for them. They mentioned what the NDP were saying and then just showed a little snippet of John Rustad talking so that people believe that this is what he had said. It's just unbelievable.
Well, and here's the weird part, is his stance on not using provincially funded resources to carry out the federal government's plan is actually not controversial because it's the same position that every other province has taken. So that's very different from not enforcing federal gun laws. And I actually saw a tweet by another NDP person saying that he wasn't going to enforce federal laws against domestic violence. Like, here's the thing, is when you weaponize stuff like that for political gain, it says a lot more about you than it does about your opponent. Because every other province has had the same stance. It's like, look, we've got limited resources. You know, crime and violence in this country, as we know, is at an all-time high. To try and, number one, associate that with legal gun owners is nuts. But then to try and say that, you know, under a BC Conservative government that, you know, would be open season for gangbangers to carry assault weapons, like, it's so far removed from reality that, to me, it shows the NDP is not a serious government, and it's almost foreshadowing of how dirty the federal election campaign will be. Like, they will literally lie to their citizens and weaponize domestic violence, weaponize gang crime, weaponize all these things for a couple of votes. It's cheap and it's dishonest.
Well, it's disgusting. And I'm going to read one more, and this is Grace Lohr. Apparently, she's a NDP politician as well. She says, this is what I was talking about yesterday. In Canada, one woman is killed by a man every 48 hours. Choosing not to enforce gun laws that limit licenses and possession by those stalking violent to their partners. I don't know, maybe she had a couple of drinks when she wrote this. Will put more women's lives at risk. Now, this woman did a video.
It's not the law he's talking about, though. He's talking about not using resources for confiscation.
For the buyback. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're applying that to C21.
And exactly. So she did this whole video talking about all the provisions of C21, saying that Rustad is going to ignore them and stop police from enforcing them. And this is the point that I want to make, and this is really important, is that these people are taking a page from the Liberal NDP Bloc Québécois playbook, whereas they will lie, flat out absolutely lie about things. And it's the things that they lie about, you can easily find out that they're lies, and they don't even care about that. And the media's jumping in and they're assisting them. So I think it was the Ottawa Citizen, they ran another story, and you know there's been tons of stories about this lately in the past year or two, about MPs and different politicians. You know, they try to go to their office, there's people protesting, they're yelling that they're Nazis or they're this or they're that or the other thing. And they're like, you know, this is terrible. I'll tell you why that's happening. It's happening because people across the political spectrum are so sick and tired of this abhorrent, absolutely toxic behavior by politicians. that their faith in the system is collapsing in its entirety. And it's the politicians' fault for thinking like, this is a win at all cost games. I have to play like this or I won't win. And I'd rather be the worst person you can imagine and win than try to change politics myself or take the high road. And this is a conscious choice. And people are breaking because people can't take being gaslit. There's a portion of the population that can't take it, and they're breaking. Mm-hmm. And this is the result. It's them. And if they want to change it, they can do like Michael Barrett just did and introduced a private members bill that said, if you perjure yourself in committee or in Parliament, that you're liable for up to a $50,000 fine and up to 6 months or mandatory 6 months in prison, among other penalties. And it's interesting. Sorry for going on about this, but this is really important news. And then you had the Liberals going like, Liberal supporters are like, oh, he's trying to put the Liberals in jail. It's like, listen, buddy, I don't know what kind of drugs you're doing, but this is a politician who's going to win his riding again. He's creating a law to put politicians that perjure themselves in jail that is going to apply to him. He's doing it. It's going to apply to him and his government. Mm-hmm. They're going to win. Conservatives are going to win a supermajority, and it's going to apply to them. That's how you can tell who's honest and who isn't. So the state of politics being in such a shambles, it's politicians' fault. It started with them. It's being perpetuated by them, and it can only be stopped by them. So the mainstream media should probably take the same example. Like, they have to start being honest and balanced and fair and call out bad information even when it's a government that pays them. So that's the only way to stop all this.
Well, and the other way to avoid, if you're worried about, they're trying to send politicians to jail, there's an easy way to avoid it. Don't perjure yourself. Don't lie. Just do the right thing. Be honest and do the right thing for your citizens and our country. Like, I don't know. I know it seems simplistic, but that's kind of where we're at, right?
Well, so, and you got to, you have to implement that, right? The fish always rots from the head down. So if you have an honest leader, a hardworking leader that leads by example, eventually you're going to weed out all the bad people, even within your own ranks. So even if the Conservatives got in, I'd be just as outraged if one of them did it. And then I would recommend to Poilievre, like, whoever that MP is, throw the book at them, like destroy them. And so that everyone else goes, okay, you know what? You can't steal billions of dollars from the government anymore. You can't tell people bold-faced lies where the truth is right there. Like, you only have to search for 2 seconds to find the truth, but I don't care, I'm going to lie anyway. Once a government comes in and a leader comes in that says this is no longer acceptable in political discourse in Canada, end of story, and no one is immune, then all of a sudden that behavior stops. It's called deterrence, and everything will get better. That's how you fix it.
Yeah, we need that law to get rid of it.
Yeah, and I'm not joking. If the Conservatives start pulling that stuff, they need to be destroyed too. It's just, you cannot tolerate it, because a little bit, it's like a disease, right? If you let it start going a little bit, like the old liberal ad scam scandal or whatever, you just let that stuff take hold, everybody starts doing it. And it's a free-for-all. It's like looting, right? It's a mob mentality.
Well, that's how I feel like it's been the last few years, right? You look at anything from pandemic spending forward, it's just, it's been egregious. So
no, people have gotten fabulously wealthy, and the nation has never been under more debt in its history.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like $4 billion a month in interest on the national debt right now. That's before you pay for any services.
My friend Crystal sent me a gift that I always say, when I get frustrated, I'm like, I just wish I could pop a clown nose on. She sent it to me, and I feel like this BC NDP story deserves it. Yeah,
unbelievable. And these are the people that want to run the province, and they've run it into the ground in the time that they've had it so far. So anyway, if you're a hunter, sports shooter, an outfitter, you understand what the NDP in British Columbia, how they feel about you, right? They can't stand you. They hate you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that vote is coming up. So make sure that you vote, and make sure that you get everyone you know out to vote in British Columbia by October the 19th, I think is the last day.
Yeah, that's the very best way you can oppose this stuff, is get out and vote, talk to 12, 15 people in your immediate circle, Show them what's happened, show them what's going on, show them this video, and then get everybody out to vote. Yeah, that's the best way to combat it.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't just complain about it, actually do something. And if everyone does that, these problems could be in the past, and let people know what you expect from them too. So, and by us being on this podcast and me saying those things, even about the Conservatives, hopefully they're getting the message, what we expect from them.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we didn't have a long list, but we had a lot of important stuff to cover. So I appreciate the update, and I guess we will see you next time.
All right. We'll see you then.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 174 of the CCFR Radio podcast. Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure you get other people involved. Get them watching the podcast, or at least staying connected to the CCFR and our feeds on all the social media platforms. And don't forget, download the CCFR Mobile App for free on the Apple Store and, of course, Google Play if you're an Android user. You can also check out the Progressive Web app. Go to ccfr.ca, look for that web story about our mobile app release, and you can find out how to get all the FAQs and all the support there, and find out how to download the Progressive Web app. So make sure that you download it, stay in touch with the CCFR, and get deals on everything, basically, that CCFR business members have to offer. Also, don't forget, October 19th, there is a provincial election in British Columbia. There's early voting too, I think from the 13th to the 16th. I'm going to vote early because I'm in British Columbia as well. And I'm sure you are as shocked as I was at the behavior of the NDP in British Columbia, like just atrocious. And of course, if you're like me and you keep an eye on federal politics, it couldn't get worse. So as we mentioned when Wilson and I were talking, there are ways for us to set things right. It's going to take a little bit of effort. So make sure that you participate. Make sure that you put your own effort into preserving your right to legally own and use firearms, and in removing governments that act like the worst human beings that you can possibly imagine that you've ever encountered in your life, especially if you're old like me. I've encountered a lot of bad people. And man, these people are really terrible. So anyway, it's going to take a little bit of effort to get rid of them. It's also going to take effort to make sure that politicians know exactly what we expect from them, and even instruct them, as we just talked about, how to turn all this around. If they don't like being harassed, they don't like having to turn their replies off on social media, then stop lying to people. And that'll probably take down all that harassment down to a little dull murmur, because people will be like, what do I want? This guy's completely honest with me, And you know what? Sometimes the answer is no, and I might not like everything they do, but they're honest, and that's really great. That's a departure. That's turning this whole thing around. It can be done, is what I'm saying to you. So anyway, thanks so much, everyone, for watching. Share the podcast. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.
This is another episode of the CCFR Radio Podcast. Remember, if you don't stand up for your own ability to own and use firearms, who will? Join the CCFR or donate right now at www.firearmrights.ca.